let's get weather for Weather Geeks on this Thursday evening, getting it online a little bit later than usual as I've been kind of babysitting the radar, making sure we don't indeed have any severe thunderstorm warnings this evening, and I don't think we will at this point. I'm recording this video, let's see, it's 7:55 p.m., just before 8 p.m., and it has been a very, very late April-like day across the valley. High temperatures today, way, way above the average. Now, this is kind of the grand finale of this pattern. We may see a return of it in February, but at least for the rest of January, I wouldn't expect a day like today, where it was 23 degrees warmer than the average. 57 was our high at the Youngstown Warren Airport earlier on today. What a stretch this has been ever since the pattern flipped a few days after Christmas. We had that harsh cold snap at Christmas time, but since the 28th of December, we've only had 2 cooler than average days, and not by a big margin. We had one day on the 7th that was 1 degree cooler than average, and on the 14th, a handful of days ago, we were 7 below the average. But every other day has been on the mild side in recent days and recent weeks. All right, so this turned out to be not a high-end severe weather event, I would say, for the state of Ohio, notable for January, but on the lower end of what we'd expect when the Storm Prediction Center did upgrade parts of Ohio to an enhanced risk early this morning. We did have quite a bit of strong wind gusts. Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, even as far east over the last handful of hours as Tuscarawas County, down in Dover, New Philly, had a gust close to 50 miles per hour, around, I think that was about 6:30 or so. Over here in West Liberty, near the panhandle of West Virginia, a 55 mile per hour gust. So yes, there's been some strong winds, but we haven't seen widespread damage on a, kind of a large scale. We've had some instances of wind damage, especially earlier on, where we had some severe thunderstorm warnings around the Cleveland area. But overall, I'd say this event sort of underperformed a little bit. Why is that? I think that we had maybe too much sunshine in Ohio this afternoon, and that sunshine allowed for strong mixing of the atmosphere. And some of the drier air aloft got pulled down to the surface, and that, as the storms pushed into that environment, there was a little too much dry air, and that did not help the air parcels to rise very efficiently and produce taller updrafts, which would have produced more severe weather. That's the going theory, anyway. As of just before 8 p.m., here's a look at the radar. A few strokes of lightning in western PA from Butler County and Beaver County up into maybe extreme southern Lawrence County as of this recording. This is all part of a very potent upper-level low-pressure system, which is moving through the Midwest and southern Great Lakes today. Very dynamic system, very spring-like, and it's going to drag in much, much cooler air, of course, as we head into the upcoming weekend. Our Friday will be marked by clouds and gusty breezes and flurries. The ground could be whitened in a couple of spots on non-paved surfaces. Maybe somebody's car gets a little coating, some grassy surfaces if you get a heavier snow shower. But for the most part, it's flurries, and it's just kind of a blustery, colder day for our Friday. The flurries will kind of linger into Friday night. Into Saturday morning, high pressure pays us a very brief visit. Then late Saturday into Saturday night, the sky can clear for a little while, but clouds will roll back in Sunday morning. And here's our next weather maker. The trends on this have been for a somewhat weaker, kind of flatter system, which makes it less likely that we'll see any sort of mixing. I think it's most likely we'll just see snow with this, but because it's kind of a flatter, weaker system, it's going to be moving along quicker. It's not very amplified, and therefore this is kind of a quick hitter and, not a huge impact event for us, but some snow accumulations, pretty likely, during Sunday and into early Sunday night. Here's kind of the first stab at some odds. We'll do a snow map in kind of an official forecast range tomorrow, but here's some odds of some certain outcomes as it stands on this Thursday evening. Pretty good bet we'll get about an inch worth of snow in most of our area. Odds are kind of more 50-50 that we get more than 2 inches, and then the odds 1 in 4 that we get more than 3 inches out of this. And I think the highest end I could see is maybe 3 or 4 inches, but even those percentages are getting kind of small once you get above 3 inches. It seems fairly unlikely that a lot of us will see much more than that. But of course, we're going to keep an eye on the trends and the latest modeling, and we'll have an official forecast for you on Friday as we get within about 48 hours of the event. We've got another event heading our way middle of next week, but there's very big uncertainty, I should say. There's a lot we don't know about the details of that midweek event. So we know there's going to be an area of low pressure that moves through. Does it bring us rain, a mix, snow, all three at some points? All of that is up in the air, and still an option at this point. This is still, we're talking middle of next week, probably about Wednesday. So we're in that phase where it's possible we'll have a winter weather event, but we're too far out for picking out a lot of trends and talking about specific timing and that sort of thing. So stay tuned on the middle of next week. All right, we are heading towards the tail end of January. And why is this blank? I've got a couple of blank maps, it looks like. Well, there's the precip outlook. Maybe I'll go back to the temperature outlook in a moment. And the Climate Prediction Center today did put out their initial February outlook, temperatures and precipitation. Here's a look at the precipitation. Expecting a general continuation of the January pattern for a good chunk of February, it looks like. It's been a wetter than average month. February will probably follow suit. This is a pretty classic looking La Nina signature in terms of the precipitation. But I'll tell you, in terms of the temperatures, it's still not very La Nina-like. They are map populated. This is the outlook as far as temperatures go. And again, it bears some similarities to January. There's going to be some cold. There's going to be some snow in February, as there is every February. But it will probably come out in the wash locally as a warmer than average month. I think this cool spell that we see from tomorrow through the end of January breaks down in early February. And maybe by the end of that first week of February, it's very balmy. Once again, some of the stuff going on in the tropics, you may have heard me talk about the Madden-Julian oscillation when I did my winter forecast. Stuff that is going on in Indonesia and the Indian Ocean and things that are far away can have downstream impacts, and that MJO is heading into phases, it looks like, by the end of this month that will lend itself to warmer patterns across the eastern U.S. as we go into early February. Now, that being said, there are some things that are of note in the stratosphere that we talked about earlier on this week on Weather for Weather Geeks. It's possible we'll have a sudden stratospheric warming event in the high latitudes up over the North Pole in early February. That might have some impacts on our weather later in February, but not right away. If it happens at the end of January, early February, we wouldn't see any sort of impacts from that, and that means basically cold getting dislodged. We wouldn't see that for probably at least a couple of weeks after the event happens. The event itself happens way up at 100,000 feet above the surface of the Earth in the stratosphere. In the meantime, I think February is going to turn out to be a balmy month as a whole, with some cold intervals certainly a possibility. It's still winter in February after all. All right, stay tuned for more updates on our weekend forecast on all my social media outlets, the Storm Tracker 21 app, and I'll see you tonight on 21 News at 11 p.m. and for Weather Geeks again on Friday.